Economist at Credit Suisse. And she joins me now from London. Quite a day to be in your role. And I just want you to weigh in here. What do you think? Can this work? Can it stimulate growth?
Yeah, I think it's quite a risky strategy for the UK government to engage in this. I think the one part of the plan, which is to freeze energy bills, is sensible in the sense that it does reduce the real income shock for consumers, which they would face over the winter if these bills were not frozen. But on the other side, the other plank of this plan, which is tax cuts, we've discussed that how they are more targeted towards the high income individuals. Tax cuts usually have much lower multipliers than, spending increases. And so it basically means that a lot of the tax cuts could potentially be saved by high income individuals and not really be, earned and spent by them. And the other important thing is that, this plan actually ends up adding to inflationary pressures in the medium term, which would basically put a lot of pressure on the Bank of England to hike rates aggressively. So even if there is a small growth boost from this, I think that's going to be, neutralized by the Bank of England, because they have a target to target inflation at 2%, and that's what they need to achieve.
Yeah, and Sonali, you just answered my next question, because as an economics student, I know what this means in terms of inflationary pressure, but I also want to get to the point of that pound, right? It sold off heavily today. How concerning is it? And how much more pressure could that put on the Bank of England? We've had a lot of discussion on this side of the pond about that strong dollar, which in any case right now, we do not want to see a currency crisis. And yet now we have the pound, scratching, $1.08 against the US dollar.
Yeah. No, I think the lower pound puts more pressure on the Bank of England as well. Firstly, a lower pound would mean higher inflation as itself, because cost of imports would increase as a result of the lower pound. Secondly, it's just a question of credibility, right? Because I think now markets are questioning that the fact that the UK now has a massive current account deficit. Now the fiscal deficit is going to go up. So the overall twin deficits of the UK are continuing to rise. And in the past, we've had external capital come into the country to fund this kind of deficit. And now the markets are testing that assumption and are demanding a higher premium and higher yields in order to, get to actually fund this huge deficit. So I think this puts a lot of pressure on the Bank of England. We're expecting them to turn hawkish in November with a 75 basis points rate hike. We're expecting rates to go to 4%. Potentially, the risks are even to the upside. So I think it really puts them in a difficult spot, because you have both the government and the Bank of England having to work in opposite directions.
Yeah, it could not have been good news when they actually saw that. And as we pointed out, this was supposed to be help, right, for those who were in an energy crisis in their own homes with their own energy bills. Kwasi Kwarteng, who is the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, I will point out to everyone now, has a PhD in economic history. He could school us on trickle-down economics, absolutely. What is different about this, though, in this economic environment? Is there, I guess I'm asking you, what are we missing? Is there a chance that this could work?
I'm struggling to figure out what that is that could make it work. Unfortunately, I think some of the reasoning giving is that, if you create reduced regulation and increase incentives for businesses to invest, that could increase business investment as well. But we've seen in the last few years that UK business investment has really underperformed, despite even some of the super allowances by the previous Chancellor. And people just find the UK an uncertain place to invest given the policies. So I'm not particularly sure exactly what path, and how we actually generate, especially the 2.5% trend growth that's been the projection, or has been the sort of agenda of the government to achieve.
And we'll leave it there for now. It has been an exhausting Friday for so many, and still going strong here on this side of the pond to see how those markets end up. Have a great weekend and appreciate your analysis on this.